copy of the book open. Again, you're going to make comments on it. Again, it should be open with Google Docs so that you can make comments as we read. Please do that. We are, I think, like on page 39-ish or something like around there. Let's go down to 39.
Mister, I gotta use the bathroom.
Okay, let's do that fast. Ready? Go to página 39. 38, 39. Here we go. Okay, chapter 8. Make sure you are here. All right. Somebody popped in here while I wasn't looking. Who was that? Who came in when I wasn't looking? Oh, no. All right. Make sure you're paying attention as I write the comments. All right. So last chapter, remember, what's her name? Gypsy. Actually, this is on the right. Gypsy met Woodrow out in the treehouse because Woodrow told her he had some more information about his mother, and then he starts telling like all these like fantastical things about his like backyard. That's like almost like some other place. He doesn't seem like he really believes her. Like she doesn't feel like she's telling the truth at all. Then you had Blind Benny come out at night and find out that there's this blind man who wanders around town and dogs following that sings. Porter was smoking a cigarette outside and kind of scared her a little bit. And then she goes to sleep, and then she doesn't have her nightmare. And that's kind of like where we're at. That's what happened in chapter 7. Again, if you lose connection, this video will be available when I'm done. Make sure you are writing comments. Okay, so how to write comments, you highlight, then you hit the plus button, or you hit insert comment. Either one works. Cole Station Elementary and Cole Station High School were both located a little piece up Slag Creek at the end of Residence Street, just before the road starting getting narrow and wound up Cold Mountain towards Kentucky. Woodrow entered the elementary school with me the next day, and it was his experience that beat going to the fair. First of all, they put him in my room, which was Miss Hart's 6B, one of the better places to be if you really wanted to learn, which we did. Then kids started peeking in to see him. His fame had preceded him, as the old saying goes. The tapeworm story had gotten through about 50 revisions. So basically, everyone heard about his story about the tapeworm, so they're talking about it. Even some of the uppity 8th and 9th graders trotted over from the high school to catch a glimpse of him. Of course, part of the curiosity was an account of him being Bill Prater's boy. But Woodrow set everybody straight the first time her name was brought up. I don't know what happened to her, and I don't want to talk about it. Right, so obviously he knows he's going to be bothered by these kids about his mom's disappearance, and he's telling them right out that he doesn't want to be bothered. He said it louder and clear, so that there was no misunderstanding his meaning. It made me a little ashamed of myself that I had attacked him with that question the first night, even though Mama told me not to. But he'd been real patient with me. Anyway, the curious noses stopped twitching for the time being, so we can move on to other business. Woodrow was friendly with everybody, but especially so to Rita Presley, who was fat and always got picked on. He smiled at her and he told her she had pretty hair, which she did. And then when somebody teased her, Woodrow said that was about the rudest thing he ever did to tell of. I was proud of him because I always had felt sorry for Rita, but I never had the nerve to stand up for a kid like that. So what are we learning about Woodrow's personality? What are we learning about Woodrow's personality? What are we learning about him? Yeah, he's kind, right? So we can see Woodrow's kind, and he is defending those who are not strong. Right? So this girl's getting bullied, and he sticks up for her. During science class that morning, we talked about caves, and Woodrow made a favorable impression on Miss Hart. How he did it was first-class clever. He merely pointed out in his bashful voice, so as not to appear as a know-it-all, that the way you could remember the difference between the upper and lower calcium deposits in a cave was that a stalagmite was a G formed from the ground, right? So it has a G in it, while a stalactite, which has a C on it, was formed from the ceiling, right? So G ground, C ceiling. So I don't know if you've ever seen stalagmites and stalactites. This is what they are. Right, so they're calcium deposits that grow from the ceiling and the ground. So these would be stalagmites because they're G ground. These would be stalactites ceiling. Right? So that's what stalagmites and stalactites are. That's what she's talking about. Miss Hart was so pleased with his little lesson. I thought for a minute she was going to hug him, which would have been embarrassing, but she didn't. She grinned instead. Woodrow was encouraged and asked if he could tell a story about a cave. Oh, yes, please do, Miss Hart said. Um, Whereupon she sat down, and once again Woodrow was at the front of the class. Woodrow's story was about Floyd Collins, a man who liked to explore the Great Mammoth Cave of Kentucky. What happened to him when he went spelunking? Spelunking is the word for cave exploration. One day was a sorrowful thing. He got stuck in a crevice that's like a little tight space, where he died because rescue workers could not reach him. I nearly wanted to cry when Woodrow was finished, for it was a true story. So we went to our arithmetic lesson in a mood of seriousness. Our minds tended to hark back to that cave in Kentucky where poor Floyd suffered so awfully for weeks preceding his death. But once again it was Woodrow who saved the day. A puzzle, a puzzle, the word whispered around the room. Woodrick has an arithmetic puzzle. Miss Hart was smiling again. There were 3 men, you see, Woodrow began. They went into a hotel in New York City, where I hear tell everything costs more than everywhere else. Anyway, they were charged $30 to sleep one night in a hotel room, if you can believe it. They grumbled, but each man paid his $10, which makes $30, right? Then they went up the stairs to their room, which, by the way, had 3 beds in it, so nobody had to double up. It wasn't no sleazy place. After they went up, the hotel manager suffered an acute attack of his conscience, and he thought, well, maybe they might have overcharged the men. So he took 5 $1 bills out of his money box there under the counter, and he told the boy he had to run errands for him to take the bills up and refund the gentlemen some of their money. So again, the person who charged them for the room charged them $30. Now he's kind of like having a change of heart, saying maybe I ripped these people off. So he's giving the kid $5 to give them back. So the boy.
What page is it again?
We're on page. What page is this? 41. So the boy goes, and on the way he puzzles over how he can divide the 5 ones evenly amongst these 3 men, and he sees no way to do it. So what did he do? He stuck 2 of them ones in his own pocket. Then he gave each one of those men 3 $1 apiece. So what did that kid do just now? What did that kid do? What did that kid just do? What did the kid do? He just did something. What was it? Hernandez? What do you think? Giving me Hernandez? She's an imposter. What did that kid just do? Ariel? What did that kid just do? Yeah. Yeah, he stole the money. Make sure you're paying attention. Seems like you're being an imposter right now. Alright, yeah, so that kid stole the money. Right? $2. Now, if you're following me, that means each man paid $9 for his room. That's $27. The boy had $2 in his pocket, right? That's $29. So, what happened to the other dollar? Woodrow sat down. We scratched our heads. He started scribbling and figuring. Miss Hart was calculating mentally on the ceiling. Woodrow then admitted he didn't have the answer. There was no satisfactory answer. Next thing we knew, it was lunchtime, and it seemed like we had just got to school. Rain poured down, and we couldn't go outside to play. So we sat around in the classroom, whispering and playing games. Hangman and tic-tac-toe. Then somebody said, "Woodrow, do you know any more puzzles?" Naturally he did. Sort of. He went to the blackboard and printed in large letters. So this is what he puts on the board. Okay? It's a riddle of sorts. Once again we were stumped until Woodrow gave us the first line, which was, "See them puppies?" Miss Hart couldn't keep the lid off for the rest of the afternoon. She said it was like trying to hold 30 corks underwater at the same time. As for me, I never had a better school day. I told Woodrow that very thing as we walked home at 3:30. "Can't you hear your calling, Woodrow?" I teased him. "You're a natural-born teacher. You make learning fun." "Oh no," Woodrow said. "I'm going to make picture shows when I grow up. My first one will be about plants that eat people. Besides, those were all Mama's stories, even in the hotel on the one of the puppies." Now, the Floyd Collins story is true, and she used to talk about it when she was blue. She said she knew exactly how Collins felt trapped, like he was in Mammoth Cave, just like Ed Morrell felt into the straitjacket, and just like Belle Prater felt on Crooked Ridge. Right, so there's this repetition of this idea of suffocation, right? Of feeling like they're like can't breathe or they're stuck, right? So you had the guy who got stuck in the cave, the guy who's in the straitjacket, and then Belle Prater who said like she felt the same way. Once again, we came full circle back to his mama, and I knew it was the thing that gnawed at him all the time, and it wormed its way into everything he said and did. Granny's phone started ringing off its cradle that evening, always for Woodrow, and it didn't slow down for as long as he lived there, which proved to me that my cousin was the most popular fella since that country singer Little Jimmy Dickens. Right, so again now, everyone's trying to be like Woodrow's friend, so his phone's always ringing. Friday evening, right after supper, Woodrow and I, along with Granny and Grandpa, were watching I Lived Three Lives on TV. Grandpa had to keep jumping up to adjust the horizontal hold because the picture was flipping and rolling and there was some snow on the screen. So again, televisions back in the day had this thing called a horizontal hold and a vertical hold, and it was basically two knobs. I can only show you what like a horizontal hold did. So basically, your screen would do this; it would just like start jumping up and down, and you had to turn the knob so it would just like stop jumping. So one of them controlled up and down like that. The other one controlled the opposite direction, and then the screens had snow. So I can only kind of like show you what it is. So it doesn't. So this TVs would look like this. So if you didn't have the right channel on, it would be snow. Now, when you were watching it normally, you kind of have to imagine that the picture would have a bit of snow in it. So like the quality of the actual images that you would see on an old TV were kind of crappy. Like you couldn't even make out who the characters are half the time. It was like a really bad picture. It wasn't until cable was invented, like in the late '70s, early '80s, that people were actually like getting a decent quality image on their screens. All right, where am I? So again, you had to like always adjust the television set just to watch anything. Other than that, you could make out people's faces for a change, and I could tell what Richard Carlson really looked like. I commented that he was really right nice looking. Huh? Woodrow snorted. "I bet if a feller had his money, even the ugliest person could be good looking." "How can money make you good looking?" I said. "You never heard tell of operations that people get on their faces," he says. "It costs lots of money. That's where all the movie stars look so good." So according to Woodrow, why do movie stars look good? Joskar, what do you think? Why do movie stars look good? Why do movie stars look
You
good?
call my name?
I sure did, there, buddy.
Oh, what was the question?
Why do movie stars look good? You need to make sure you guys are paying attention.
Because the plastic surgery that they could pay with their money.
Yep. So that's what he believes.
I'm just reading it here.
Yeah, that's fine. So again, he basically believes that movie stars all get plastic surgery, which they probably do some of them nowadays. The Kardashians are living proof that people um, will be willing to pay for all kinds of plastic surgery. They're not supposed to look like that. They got all kinds of plastic surgery done to look like that, and it winds up creating like this impossible, achievable goal, right? So lots of girls see those girls walking around with those fake everything, and they think that, oh, I want to look like that. But meanwhile, those girls have probably spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on plastic surgery to make themselves look that way. Did you ever see an ugly movie star? No, you didn't. They got money, and I bet the truth was a bunch of them were born uglier than a mud fence. This is an example of what? What is that an example of? Who knows that? What is that an example of? What is that an example of? Benny, what are you doing? Keep looking up and down. What's that an example of? It's a metaphor, correct? Soto's on point today. Bob Soto. We were stretched out on our bellies on Grandy's braided rug, a box of Cracker Jacks between us. I don't know if you've ever had Cracker Jacks before. Let me show you what they are. Cracker Jacks. Okay, so Cracker Jacks, they used to come in little boxes like this, and they were basically caramel popcorn. But the thing that made Cracker Jacks so popular is the fact that they used to have like a little prize on the bottom of the Cracker Jacks. It was like a little toy that you can get. Okay. Woodrow had found a prize, a rubber ring, and I let him keep it even though it was pink and should have been for a girl. That show ended and Dinah Shore came on singing, "See the USA in your Chevrolet." Chevrolet's a car. "America's the greatest land of all," and throwing us a kiss. Dog could be heard barking outside, and at the same time there was a knock on the front door. Woodrow and I scrambled to our feet. He beat me to the door. It was Uncle Everett. So who is Everett? Who is Everett? Very importante. You need to know who Everett is. Yeah, that's Woodrow's father. Yep. "Howdy, son," he said quietly. He was tall and shaggy looking. He was wearing overalls, and in his hands was an old beat-up hat, which he twisted around like he was nervous. So I don't know if you know what overalls are. You should probably know, but just in case you don't, these are what overalls are. Okay, so he's wearing something like that. Um, where am I? Where did I lose my spot? Howdy do. Granny and Grandpa stood up and greeted Uncle Everett, offered him a seat, but he took
Right.
At least he took the edge of it, where he perched, and he didn't appear any uncomfortable. I can barely remember him being in this room once, maybe twice before, and it occurred to me, for the first time, that it could be Uncle Everett. Felt self-conscious with us, just like Woodrow had felt that day in his oversized pants with the rope holding him up, and me in frilly dress. So it's kind of important. So Everett is very poor, and so when he goes inside this house, he feels out of place because everything in this house is so nice. Meanwhile, he was living in a shack, right? So he kind of like doesn't feel at home. He doesn't feel comfortable. "I just wanted to check in on you, boy," Uncle Edward said. "See you're doing okay." "Doing fine," Woodrow said, and he parked on the floor beside his daddy's chair. I eased down there beside Woodrow. "You started school here, I reckon?" Uncle Everett said to him. "Yeah, they put me in Miss Hart's room," Woodrow said with Gypsy. Uncle Everett glanced at me and nodded. "How you doing, Gypsy?" "I'm fine. How are things with you, Uncle Everett?" "Getting by. Yeah, I reckon I am." He said it like he wasn't too sure. There was a moment of uncomfortable silence. "How's Daisy and Milkweed?" Woodrow said. "They're fine, too. So I take it back. Daisy's fine. Milkweed busted her right front hoof on a mattock, but she's mending." "So who are Daisy and Milkweed?" "Who are Daisy and Milkweed?" "Who are Daisy and Milkweed?" "What do you think, Fernando? Who are Daisy and Milkweed?" "Mr. Grande, they are not cousins. You need to pay attention, Hernandez." Who are Daisy and Milkweed? Not
Oh, yeah.
sisters. You have to pay attention to this part.
Pretty sure they're pets.
They're close. What kind of animal
Like farmers.
has a hoof? There's only a couple of animals that have hoofs.
Oh, horse
Yeah, so
or
it's
sheep.
probably a horse, right? So they're either horses or it could be a mule, right? So it's gonna be one of the two. So those two animals are either horses or wolves or mules. Oh, Woodrow, was she bad hurt? Not bad. Not another silence. So they keep, excuse me, the author keeps mentioning that there's a silence to kind of show that this is awkward. Okay, and I guess Woodrow began, then thought better of it. Oh, nothing. I don't know a bit more about her now than I knew when you left, Woodrow, Uncle Everett assured him. But I'll be bound to come and give you answers if I learn anything straight away. I trust you do the same. So, kind of right here, this is interesting. Um, what you should notice is Woodrow probably wants to ask about his mom. Woodrow wants to ask about mom, but is nervous. And Dad realizes it and says he knows nothing. Okay, so that's kind of what happened there. It's like subtle. Okay, so Woodrow wants to know about his mom, but doesn't say it, and then the father says, "I don't know anything." You need anything? Uncle Everett asked. No, I got more than I need, Woodrow said. That's a blessing, son, Uncle Everett said, because I'm broke as the Commandments. This is an example of what? What is that an example of? That is a simile, correct. Bueno. Then they went up onto some more small talk like that before Uncle Everett stood up and eased out the door. Woodrow went to the window and he watched his daddy go out the walkway to the road. What's this an example of? What is that? Ayano, do you know what that is an example of? Again, it's a type of figurative language. What type is it? Woodrow went to the window.
Metaphor.
Not a metaphor. Yes, it is alliteration. Okay, good. I walked over and stood at Woodrow's elbow. I was still light enough out there that I could see somebody was in Uncle Everett's car. It was a blonde-headed woman. Woodrow clutched the windowsill with one hand. I could see his knuckles turning white. Why are his knuckles turning white? Why are Woodrow's knuckles turning white? Yeah, so he's probably angry, Ariel. Why is he angry? What would make him angry right now?
Because he saw someone in the car.
It's not just someone. Who is it?
A woman.
A woman. So what is he probably thinking right now?
That the guy cheated or something.
Yeah, exactly, right? So Woodrow's turned white because he sees another woman and believes his father is cheating on his wife. So he's mad. I didn't say a word about who that might be in his car, and Woodrow didn't say anything for the rest of the evening. All right, so you are going to do some questions.